Good morning, NREA. Good morning, Philippines, and good morning wherever you are in the world and on Mars. We are live on Zoom and via Facebook Live. I am Architect Ronnie, your host for today. And to officially start the program, our National Auditor Ruth Marie Atienza will lead the prayer, followed by the national anthem. Ms. Ruth.
Good morning. Let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, we praise and thank you for the gift of life and the gift of this day. As we end this week, O Lord, may you grant us the grace of a grateful heart to appreciate the beauty and the majesty of your creation, to see the opportunities to be good stewards of all that you have entrusted to us. Thank you for this business forum online that will help enlighten us about the real estate industry amidst the challenges brought about by the pandemic. Bless our resource speakers, moderators, technical staff, and the internet connections so that all those who will be listening may have a fruitful experience. In a special way, we pray for our country, our beloved Philippines. We pray for wisdom for the President and all those in authority in our country as they serve and lead the Filipino people. We pray for peace and order in our land and for reconciliation among all Filipinos. We pray for economic recovery and prosperity for the nation, revival in the land, and national renewal. In Jesus' mighty name, and by the powerful intercession of our beloved Mother Mary and Saint Joseph, we pray, Amen. In the name of the
Amen.
Father, and of the Son,
Father,
and of
the
the
Son,
Holy
and of the Holy
Spirit.
Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
I'd like to begin first by acknowledging the following our generous sponsors, Shanti Gem, Bria, E. Ganson Incorporated, and Forest Lake. Thank you for your generosity. And also, I'd like to acknowledge here the NREA Board of Trustees and Officers. We have the Chair Emerita Marisa Del Mar, Chair Lady Board of Advisors, Board Chairman Benigno Cabrieto Jr., Board Vice Chairman Ricky M. Celis, National President Imelda Magtoto, Executive Vice President Rizalito Red Rosales, Vice President External Ed Sanchez, Vice President Internal Jovi Francis Tupas, Treasurer Nicole Ann Marie Chowa, Auditor Ruth Marie Atienza, PRO Jeffrey Bongat, Trustee Rodolfo Leonen, Trustee Aniceto Bisnar, Trustee Maria Isolde Flores Prado, and our Board of Advisors, Architect Pilino S. Palafox Jr., Architect Nestor Magno, Bansan Choa, Marcelino Mendoza, and also our NREA Secretariat, Aurora Pusong, Executive Director, Mr. Ber Maclang, Ms. Lane Santawana, Executive Assistant, Mr. Paul Santos, Administrative Assistant, Ms. Maria Lourdes Angeles, and Mr. Bong Tejada.
We also
So
have
now
Miss
we're
Seni Fruto.
yeah, and our Vice President for chapters, Ms. Zenith Fruto. Thank you, Architect Grace.
Thank
Now
you.
we're back to the program again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for
Good
joining us
morning.
today as we hold the Business Forum online for February with the theme Pro 2021, the Philippine Real Estate Outlook 2021. Let, let us welcome the National President, Ms. Imelda Magtoto, for her welcome remarks.
Morning. It is my pleasure to open the online business forum of the National Real Estate Association. It is customary for organizations to plan for the operational year. We have alternative plans to pivot our organization's program in case of changes in environment, and we have also what we call the continuity plan if there would be severe disruption in the environment that might threaten the very survival of our business, such as the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, which was a very rare event. As a general rule, we expect regularity. We hate severe and widespread changes and disruption. For these, we do our SWOT exercises, such as evaluating our firm's strengths and weaknesses, as well as the opportunities and threats we foresee from our business environment. Today's forum will serve to validate and guide our plans for 2021. We are fortunate to have resource speakers as the renowned economist Dr. Bernardo Villegas of the University of Asia and the Pacific, Attorney Angel Aguila of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, as well as Mr. Kenneth Stern, CEO of Lamudi Philippines. So without further ado, let's start our online business forum. Thank you.
Thank you, National President, Ms. May Magtoto. Also, I'd like to acknowledge here Mr. Andy Manialak, member of the Board of Advisors, as well as the guests, all joining us today. So let me just remind everyone of the following announcements and house rules. For self-directed learning, NREA is offering new normal rate for new members. Also, for all licensed real estate practitioners who would like to avail of the PRC self-directed learning for CPD units. You may type your full name with picture in the comment, take picture together with the ongoing NREA Business Forum, and send it to NREA for certificate of attendance with a fee. For more information, you are seeing here all the contact details, and please get in touch with Miss Lane or Miss Eileen. Reminder, reminder also, only me, the MC, the moderators, officers, and speakers are allowed to use the microphone. For questions, you may type them in the chat box. For any concern, you may chat your concern, and the moderators will assess and handle the questions after all speakers have spoken. So there you have it, guys. And to introduce our first speaker, let us welcome the NREA Board Vice Chairman, Mr. Ricky M. Celis. Mr. Ricky.
Good morning, everyone. Our first speaker is from the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. He started his career as a senior legal counsel at the Manila Electric Company in 2009. He joined the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board starting June 11 up to February of 2016 as a housing and land use arbiter at the Policy Development Group. He then went on to become director for Legal, Anti-Squatting, and External Affairs Group of the Housing and Urban Development and Coordinating Council in March of 2016 up to December of 2017. A year after, he became the director for Policy Development, Legislation, and Special Projects Group of the same council, HUDCC. With the formation of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development in January 2020, we are fortunate to have him as the OIC Director of the Housing and Real Estate Development and Regulation Bureau. He's a loyal Atenista, graduated with honors, Bachelor of Laws at the Ateneo de Manila College of Law, started that academic career from Ateneo since high school. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker, Attorney Angelito F. Aguila.
Yes, thank you, Ricky, and good morning. Good morning to all. It's good to be part of NREA. It's always good to be part of NREA's business meeting forums, and let me just start this by congratulating the newly inducted officers and members of the Board of Trustees of NREA. It was a privilege on my part to be there in your induction here in our building. Pero Ricky, I just want to make a minor correction in your introduction. 2009 was not the year when I started to be a private practice with the Manila Electric Company. 2009 was when I retired from the Manila Electric Company. But thank you for that. That made me a years younger, okay?
Actually,
2009.
pinapabata lang
Okay.
kita, Attorney.
Yeah, okay, sige, salamat. Yeah, okay. Anyway, can I just, before I start with the my presentation, allow me to share my presentation, okay? That's it for my slideshow. Before I begin, for us, the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, we are a regulator and a newly organized department. It's a daunting task for me to speak about the real estate outlook of the Philippines for 2001. And along with my co-resource speakers, I feel a little bit humbled, particularly with Dr. Bernardo Villegas here. As a matter of fact, when I was asked to similarly come up with a presentation on real estate outlook for the Philippines after the COVID pandemic, I had to do a little research. And one of the articles I've read was a series of articles from Dr. Villegas, but without going to the details, more or less, they came up more or less with the favorable outlook. And they were saying, well, in gist, that the housing sector, the real estate development sector, is not very much affected. There's a positive outlook. The need for shelter is there, of course. The demand may have shifted a little bit. Like, for example, people have realized a bigger space because of the pandemic, and yet others have realized there's a need to shift to transfer to some places, apartments, condominiums, rental, or buying near their offices, near the schools and universities of the children, to minimize travel, to minimize contact with other people in light of the pandemic. But generally, although I would not go into the details, there's a favorable outlook. So I will just go into the details of that. My role here would be, what is our role in supporting how we can jumpstart the economic recovery, how we can add to the impetus for the how to mobilize employment, construction, business. And I think this is the obligation of the role now of the department, not just as a regulator, but to be part of the bigger scenario wherein we have to contribute something for the economic recovery. So more or less, our issuances would be geared toward how do we help the real estate, the housing sector, be an additional impetus to the economic recovery of the country. But let me just as I always start my presentation with a brief introduction, I've been introducing the department for the past 2 years because up to now, people are still referring to our office as the HLURB. They write letters to us addressed to HLURB, but there's now the DHSUD, the combination of HUDCC, the HASI, and the HLURB. So for those who may not still be familiar, people are still referring to us as HLURB. We are now the Department of Human Settlement, the DHSUD, and just that these are the milestones in our in the enactment of the law and the creation of the department. We just celebrated our second anniversary, not second, but well, because of the pandemic, not much is happening, and we were able to come up with IRR. Last year, we were supposed to fully operationalize. We were supposed to start hiring our people, but COVID caught us, and we're really trying to catch up with our the mandates imposed us. And I always start my presentation by clarifying how were the powers, the regulatory powers of the HLURB transferred to the new department. In fact, when we presented the IRR to the Senate, they were asking us, why did you include so many mandates, so many functions in your IRR, which were not in the law, which were not in RA, in the law creating the department. But the law creating the department, R11201, made an en masse transfer of all the regulatory powers of the HLURB to the department, which included, of course,
Attorney Angel, no audio. Attorney Angel.
engage in project selling. So you have to both be under the regulation of the PRC, PRB RES, as well as the new Department of Human Settlements as provided under PD 957. And also included in the regulatory powers and functions transferred from the HLURB to the department is the implementation of the balanced housing development. So all in all, this is the coverage of the regulatory powers of the department with respect to the housing and real estate development, or particularly subdivision and condominium projects. So last year, when we were about to just starting to operationalize, we came up with, of course, several issuances in preparation for that. The first was Department Order Number 1, issuance of provisional license to sell, because our old forms for license to sell and certificate of registration became obsolete under the old office header of the HLURB. So we have to change all of that. We have to renumber. So we are issuing provisional license to sell until we get the real license to sell and certificate of registration for projects. That includes certificate of registration of brokers and salespersons, which are what we call accountable forms. They are in security forms issued only by the National Printing Office. They are securitized and numbered. So while we are awaiting for them, we are issuing provisional license to sell. So that was last year. You remember also last year, because of we were transferring office, we suspended the imposition of penalty for late renewal of registration. We extended that. Because of that, we have to transfer office. And now I think maybe a lot of you know that we reissued a similar department order for that. We are this year extending it until March 31st. So we don't want to crowd our offices for those trying to register, because we are trying to maintain physical distancing, very well, during those limited 1 month period for the renewal of registration towards the end of the year. Our regional offices, particularly NCR and our Southern Tagalog region offices, they get really jam-packed with brokers and salespersons trying to renew. So we extended that until March 31st. So you don't really have to crowd in our offices just to observe some quarantine measures and physical distancing. Okay. And lastly, just for the transition period, you remember we also issued a Department Order Number 3. This is to address the the separation of several offices like NCR, which used to handle the all projects in Rizal province, which was now transferred to our Southern Tagalog region. And then Southern Tagalog region was divided into two, into 4A and 4B for Mimaropa and Calabarzon. Our office in Cebu was also divided into two, region 7 and 8 for Samar and Leyte, along with the other regional offices from region 1 to region 10. So we have to address the transfer, where to file, how to transfer where to file applications, who to adjudicate pending cases, how to resolve them. And so for those developers who still have pending applications or pending cases in those affected regions, they might need to consult this and locate their files if it's still in the old office or in the new office already. Okay. Then COVID hit us last year. It's just like giving you a background of what happened last year before we proceed to our outlook, how we are preparing for our economic recovery. Last year, because of the pandemic, what we did first, because we are a buyer's protection government agency, we issued Department Order Number 4, which provided for a grace period for payment of buyers under installment or in-house financing. Practically, this is a grant for all, which have installment payments, in-house financing, which give them a 6 months additional period to pay those installment payments accruing during the ECQ periods, okay? But I think this is already what we call, this department order has expired after 6 months unless another Bayanihan law is issued prescribing for another period of moratorium for all payments, which incidentally, I may have to mention it, we attended one webinar or Senate hearing for a proposed moratorium for all rental payments during time of calamities, not just during COVID, but in all calamities. And during the discussion, they also included here, why not include moratorium for payments of all in-house financing, installment payments during periods of calamity. So that is a pending Senate bill, which was discussed a few weeks, probably 2 weeks ago, and which is now to be forwarded to the Technical Working Committee for further refinement of the proposed bill. Okay, we issued something in favor of the buyers. We similarly issued something in favor for the developers, that's Department Order Number 6. You know, all projects were affected. The completion and development of all projects were affected last year because of the cessation, stoppage of construction, the requirement of quarantines, when communities impose their own lockdown. So we provide an automatic grant of additional 1-year period for all projects. For those developers with ongoing development, they might have to check the schedule provided in this department order when to file their application for additional time. It's an automatic grant of 1 year. On a case-to-case basis, when there are special lockdowns in different communities affecting the development of the projects, developers may still apply for an additional time of completion, not just or in addition to the 1-year granted year. So this is an important issuance in favor of the developer. And I know this would also affect brokers and salespersons because maybe a few years from now or next year, 2 years from now, buyers would start complaining. How come their condo units, house and lots are not yet being delivered? Well, you can refer to this because of the quarantine, because of the stoppage of construction. The department has issued a grant of additional time of completion. At least meron kayong pang defense why the projects are being delayed. So you won't, I know for a fact in so many cases, developers are the one frontlining and being harassed by buyers. How come the units are not yet being delivered? So we have one department order, that's number 6, granting an additional time of completion for all projects. Likewise, we hope this memorandum circular gets institutionalized and part of our SOP. During the COVID, during the pandemic, we could not conduct actual inspection of projects. You know, when developers apply for their license to sell, we need to we need to do an actual inspection to determine the level of development, which is a requirement for the issuance of the license to sell, the minimum level of development. At the same time, how much is the required performance bond? But a lot of license to sell were the issuance of which were delayed because of the inability to conduct actual inspection. So we issued memo circular number 7, providing for alternative procedure. We can have photographs, videos, live online inspection. So those are the alternative measures. So we can implement we can come up with an inspection and a report as a basis for the issuance of the license to sell and the computation of the performance bond. Hopefully, we get to institutionalize it. This is part of the digitizing and part of the upgrading our procedure in order to make a lot of our requirements easier for in the issuance of the license to sell. Okay, there were several other issuances last year, not very much important for our discussion. We suspended the requirement of annotation in the mother title of socialized housing projects, which makes it a lot easier for developers and a lot more economical in the processing of their license to sell of socialized housing projects. At the same time, we made purchase of asset-backed securities issued by the National Home Mortgage as full compliance. As an improvement to the previous version of the old rules on balance housing, if ever developers would opt to purchase asset-backed securities from the National Home Mortgage, it's just a provisional compliance. But this time around, under Department Order Number 11, purchase of asset-backed securities is now a full compliance to the Balanced Housing Development Program. These are the more important issuances now. We have convened the National Human Settlements Board, and they have issued some important policy measures. First is, of course, there's the internal rules of national human settlement. What is important in the rules of the board, this is for those who may not be so familiar, the NHSB, well, more or less would replace the council, the HADC, the council before, which is in charge now of coming up with policies for the housing and real estate development in our sector. So what is important in their procedure is the representation of the private sector, including the participation of the private sector in the technical working committee, which should be in charge of coming up and studying, drafting, formulating the policies to be issued by the National Human Settlements Board. So we will be issuing requests from the private sector or to nominate the representatives soon, because we need to convene the National Human Settlements Board for some major issuances. And lastly, what I mentioned earlier, via Department Order Number 2, it suspended the requirement of registration until March 31st for brokers and salespersons. So again, you don't have to crowd yourself in our regional offices. You have until March 31st to renew your registration. But at the same time, you can go on with your transaction in the real estate service. Okay. We now go to the more important, to the meat of our forum, which is in preparation for what's the outlook for 2021, and how do we, the department, as part of the housing sector, the urban development sector, be able to contribute to add impetus to the economic recovery of the country. Well, there is a saying when we were studying law, that taxation is the lifeblood of the country, of the economy of the country. For the real estate development, particularly for subdivision and condominium projects, it's the license to sell, which is the lifeblood of the developers, and also, of course, of real estate service practitioners. If there is no license to sell issued, you cannot yet start selling subdivision and units in subdivision and condominium projects. So the thrust now in our two major issuances would be how to facilitate and expedite the issuance of the license to sell in favor of these projects. We all very well know that as soon as they get to start to sell, the developers get to come up with more capitalization for their projects. You level up on the construction, you level up the engagement of more workers. So that is our contribution. And the first of that would be, it's one of the difficulties of the developers in securing their licenses is coming up with their compliance. But now we issued Department Order number 3, series of 2021, just signed last February 19. It's the deferment of submission of proof of compliance to the balanced housing development. So unlike before, when a developer would have to have the license to sell for his project, he would need to be ready with his socialized housing project also. And that takes a lot of the effort and the capitalization or the funding of the main project, because a part of that would have to be diverted to the socialized housing compliance. But we know that it's the main project that generates more income, generates more construction. So they can start ahead with the main project. We defer the requirement of proof of compliance, not at the time of licensing of the main project, but a developer would have the first half of the period of completion of the main project to prepare the socialized housing project, have it licensed and accredited as compliant. So let's say the developer is coming up with a condominium project with the time of completion given or granted by us for a 5-year period of time of completion. So unlike before, at the start for the licensing, the developer would have to have his socialized housing project. Now, he will be given 2.5 years to prepare for his socialized housing compliance, during which he is already issued his license to sell. He can start selling. He can start coming up with additional infusion of capitalization for the project, engaging more workers. So our brokers and salespersons go into the real estate practice. So that is one of our primary contribution to the economic recovery, particularly coming from the housing sector, the deferment of submission of proof of compliance. But let me just clarify this. This does not apply if the compliance of the developer would be the incentivized or the escrow compliance, because that is already incentivized, that is already reduced. If developers would opt to avail of that incentivized compliance, they would have to submit that at the time of licensing. That is not deferred. The only compliance deferred is when the compliance is a socialized housing project also. Okay. Also soon to be issued would be another department order wherein we will be giving back the issuance of the temporary license to sell. And I think a lot of you are familiar with this TLS. It's been there, it's been gone, now it's back. You remember before that we used to issue TLS, temporary license to sell, for condominium projects with no building permit yet, because of we recognize that it takes a long time for developers to secure their building permits for their condominium projects. So we issued temporary license to sell, but we withdrew that, we revoked that authorization to issue temporary license to sell because of some problems. But now, in recognition or because of the need to really be able to have the project started, we will be issuing the issuance of temporary license to sell, the submission of undertaking in lieu of some requirements or like permits and clearances before they can secure their building permits, before they can secure their clearances, before they can secure their verified survey result or report. We will be issuing a temporary license to sell subject to certain condition. Ayan, medyo mapapadali po ang pag-issue ng license to sell in recognition also of the delay on the part of other agencies in processing some of their requirements because of the pandemic, the quarantine. Everything went on a slowdown. So just to speed up everything, we will be dispensing temporarily with those requirements. We will require the submission of undertaking, and we will be issuing temporary license to sell. Lapit na po yan. It's a big relief for many developers, and also for those in the real estate service, for brokers and salesperson, you will be able to start selling a lot of projects issued with temporary license to sell. Okay. A minor issue once also, we issued MC Memorandum Circular number 1. These are the guidelines for the Balay Filipino socialized housing projects, which are the beneficiaries of the developers' escrow compliance. So there are certain guidelines which these projects would have to comply with in order to be entitled to the escrow compliance of the developers. Okay, and the more important policy reforms and issuances, I think also affecting your sector profession would be, we will be encouraging rental housing, rental subsidy. Unlike before, wherein all projects were supposed to be sold, well, we are now encouraging LGUs to go into rental housing, and part of that to augment that is rental subsidy, in order to provide more options for beneficiaries, particularly for those who cannot afford yet home ownership. They might want to go into rental housing first before graduating into home ownership. So it facilitates provision of more housing, more shelter, not just in terms of ownership, but in terms of other secured tenure like long-term rental, long-term use of RAC. So this is part of the mandates of the department to come up with different housing options for the beneficiaries. And also, in response to the clamor of many among developers, we will be starting soon the review of socialized and economic housing standards together with the review of the price ceiling. So admittedly, it was set in 2017. That was almost 4 years ago. And in particularly the economic price ceilings, the loan ceilings for low cost and medium cost, which were set a long time ago. There is indeed there's an urgent need for them to be reviewed, and particularly now for socialized and economic housing standards. So we will soon be going into that. Probably we'll start by the first quarter or by next month. Other major undertakings of the department would be, you've heard of this, the urgency to come up with the housing one-stop processing centers to really expedite the permitting and licensing process. It's a daunting task because we have to harness all the efforts, all the cooperations of different government agencies engaged in the permitting and licensing. Not to mention the difficulty we encounter with the LGU's first part of the project phase. Okay, another task ahead of us is, we have started with this identification and management of idle government lands. This is the good opportunity for the department to engage into some other forms of housing, not just socialized, but also economic, not just for sale, but also rental. We do manage that with the intention of idle government lands may be utilized to be self-generating, to provide more housing. At the same time, we get to have additional funds to sustain future housing projects of the government. So it's a big task ahead of us. And we have started collecting what are the idle government lands available for housing and urban dev. The last two in red are, I know, would be very of special concern for all of you. There's an ongoing discussion and negotiation in the department for the online registration for real estate service practitioners. Online registration, online transactions, online payments. So we have started with this. It's not that fast to come up with a joint memorandum circular because it has to undergo certain procedures. We just want to make sure we started the right footing. We don't want to be questioned later on, but this is an ongoing negotiation within the department for the online, acquiring the system for an online registration for real estate service practitioners. Well, the issue here is that we realize that there are certain regulations how much we can impose, or the provider can impose for the convenience fee. I think there are regulations for that, and we're checking on that just to make sure we go into it in the right way. And lastly, we've been I guess you might have heard that PRC-PR Bures has been engaging us for our campaign against illegal real estate service practice, what the Bantay Colorum, we have drafted a joint memo circular for a campaign against illegal real estate service practice. If you might have heard of Batangas, no, not Batangas, our Southern Tagalog region, Region 4, Region 4A, went into some what do you call this? Apprehended some pretending to be practitioners, but they are not. I guess they were not licensed. They were not both by PRC and by the department. So selling, going to project selling, and we are serious into going to this. We have a joint memo circular. We are just processing it. This is really for those unlicensed and unregistered brokers and salespersons, and we really need your assistance to be able to be effective in its implementation, as well as for those selling unlicensed and unregistered projects. So this is one that we should speed up in the finalization and in the implementation, because it's going to be a big help for all of us, and in making efficient our, not just making efficient our real estate regulation, but also this is really on the higher objective of providing more protection for our buyers. Okay, just to wrap it up, last year, 2 years ago, when we were about to start, we came up with a 10-point agenda. I don't know where we start now, but this was set when we were operationalizing that this is what we have to really focus on. Increase in housing production. Apparently, because of the pandemic last year, production coming from the government part really went down, and it's our obligation now to really do our share, not just in increasing in housing production, but what we're doing in our issuances, trying to facilitate and revitalize the real estate sector. And number two, we're doing this, engaging the housing stakeholders as a key strategy. We're doing genuine consultations, and you have become part of our decision-making process. Number three is partnering with the LGUs. We're doing that through the land use planning and preparation of shelter planning. Number four, sustain the funding for housing and urban development. This is really, we have failed miserably. Not a fault on our part, but in so far as the budget allocated for the department, for the housing sector, it's in the general appropriation, it's still very dismal, negligible, nakakaawa po binibigay na budget po sa amin. And we really have to work on securing a bigger funding for the housing sector. Improving governance. Incidentally, we have come up with 2 department orders for the creation of the National Committee for Housing and Urban Development. That's all the shelter agencies. And also on the regional level, all the regional offices of the shelter agencies. These are the regional committees for the housing and urban development, so as to improve coordination among us. Kasi on the regional level, nagkakaiba-iba implementation ng mga regional offices of the department and of the shelter agencies or our attached agencies. So we need to improve our governance. Okay, last slide. Unlocking of government lands. I mentioned that, when lands are proclaimed, lands are idle, we were given the task to manage and to manage the government lands, idle government lands for housing and urban development purposes. To develop affordable rental housing, we are going into that. Resilient and housing and community, of course, as part of our Balay standards. The one-stop shop. Oh, incidentally, ARTA is really helping us in operationalizing the regional housing one-stop processing centers and really trying to reduce the red tape in the permitting and licensing process. And lastly, well, in relation to number 9, we cannot go into that unless we are able to optimize the use of information and communication technology. Data sharing is really very important. It's something we have been lagging. We have lagged on. We have not yet catch up with the advancement in the information and utilization of information technology. So that's really, we have to go into that. Not just for the housing one-stop processing center. In fact, it's order to implement all our mandates, we need to optimize the use of information and communication technology. So I guess that's all for the department now. We're really looking forward to working with all of you, helping us in the implementation of our mandates in the coming years. Maraming salamat po.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Aguila.
Until the midnight.
Thank you, Shanti Gem, for your generosity. And now to introduce our next speaker, let's give a round of applause for our board advisor and um, past vice chair lady, architect Grace Layo.
Architect, this is Jovi Tupas. I'll be introducing the next speaker. So, Mr. Kenneth Stern is a real estate veteran with 10 years of experience in the industry in the United States, Australia, and the Philippines. Prior to joining Lamudi, he was the country manager of Remax Philippines and helped the company grow to be the largest real estate franchise in the country by number of offices, agents, and transaction volume. Kenneth holds a master's degree in international business at Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, and a bachelor's degree in business administration at Boston University, USA. Kenneth was previously Bloomberg's and Business World Live's property expert on One News. Together, let us give an NREA big round of virtual applause to our guest speaker, the CEO of Lamudi Philippines, Mr. Kenneth Stern.
Thanks, Jovi. Thanks, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Hope everyone's doing well and safe. I'm currently actually in quarantine at the moment. I just arrived back from Pakistan about 5 days ago. We were recently acquired by the MPG Group, which is based has an operation in Pakistan. So I'm now in quarantine. So hope everyone's doing well and safe. And yeah, I just want to firstly thank NREA for all the work that you've done in the past. I've been following you guys along for a while now, and we always want to work with the best in the industry and the most professional groups. So it's a pleasure to be a part of this, and hope that we can continue this partnership for a very long time. You guys are doing great things in the industry. So I wanted to talk today about some of the trends that we saw in 2020 and what to expect in 2021, basically focusing primarily on the residential market and sort of demand trends, vacancy trends, clicks in certain areas, and obviously Lamudi being one of the biggest tech portals in the country. We wanted to show you some of our data from the tech side, which I think is very relevant in making decisions for both buyers and sellers. We've very quickly moved to a digital age where if you're not online and you're not understanding what's happening online, you're going to start falling behind. So I think it's very important that we share this data with you so that you can see where the high volume of traction is going. Next slide, please. So to summarize what we do, Lamudi is a portal that connects the demand to the supply. So we have a clientele of brokers. Many of you are part of our clientele. We also work with some of the biggest developers in the country and also some of the smaller and medium-sized ones as well. But many of the developers that are professional here in the country are our clients, and we connect them with the supply. So we have millions of page views every month, people looking for properties, and essentially we connect the two groups together. So our mission and vision at Lamudi is to be the Philippines' #1 real estate partner by creating transparency, building trust, and promoting professionalism in the buying and selling and renting experience. So similar to what NREA does, we want to create that transparency. We want all of our buyers to make the most informed decision. We want to build trust between both groups. And of course, we want to promote the most professional brokerages in the market to make that selling, renting, and buying experience the best it can be. And at the end of the day, if we help everyone find their dream property online, then we think we've done our job in making that experience better. So a little bit about our journey over the last 7 years. So we were launched end of 2013 into 2014, originally owned by Rocket Internet. They also started companies such as Lazada, Zalora, Foodpanda. You might be familiar with some of those now, especially since we've moved basically completely to an e-commerce buying stage at this point because of the pandemic. So many of our companies now have expanded. But yeah, so we were originally launched by Rocket Internet when we were first started in 2014. We then slowly grew our market share. So we bought My Property in 2015. They were our biggest competitor at the moment in 2015, actually still are. And because they are now part of the Lamudi Group, we have that market share as well. In 2016, we started our targeted campaigns with developers. So many of the largest developers in the country are with our targeted campaigns. We then in 2017 and 2018 and 2019 really focused on our services. So putting out data reports, Lamudi Academy, which is an online academy now, completely digital with a library. And we also do live training sessions online and webinars. And of course, our 360 campaigns for brokers and developers as well. So full service marketing, everything they need to help them be more professional. And the latest and most exciting news was our acquisition by the EMPG Group. EMPG stands for Emerging Markets Property Group. They're one of the largest property groups in the world. They are a unicorn. Unicorn means that you have a company value of over $1 billion. So we're very excited to have them on our team now and as mentors, because they've set up very successful portals all over the world. Most notably Zameen in Pakistan, which is where I came from. They have a 90% market share in terms of clientele, and have done everything in the real estate services at this point, from portals to brokerage to development, full circle. They also have Bayut in UAE. They've got Kaidi in Thailand. So many companies that are all part of the MPG group that have seen success. And that's why we are rapidly scaling at this point, so that we can continue to help promote that professionalism and grow the services that we offer, similar to how other EMPG companies have grown in recent years. So I want to talk a little bit about where we see the real estate industry going. So we have two pillars that we look at when analyzing data. To keep it very simple, we look at #1 page views and #2 leads. So page views are a very macro, I guess, vision or a macro screenshot of where trends are going. Page views, meaning just people looking at pages, doesn't necessarily mean that they're inquiring, just means that that's where the eyes are going. So I think it's important to see where page views are happening, because people will look at areas where they're potentially going to buy. So that is a major factor in real estate trends. So we have roughly 6.3 million page views as of January 2021, monthly page views. In terms of leads, those are a more micro perspective on the market. So those are the people who actually click on the listing itself and will inquire about pricing, more pictures, or even setting up a showing. So those go directly to our clients who are brokers, and we generate roughly 140,000 leads per month to our broker clientele. So I think when you look at those two pillars there, you'll have a fairly accurate portrayal on where trends are happening and where listings that are attractive are getting the most number of leads and the most attention. So the property seeker trends in 2020, who was exactly looking at these properties last year? So we'll go into some demographics now. So the age group that dominated the property views, page views, was the millennials. So at 20% as of end of 2020, that's a 30% growth year on year, 34% to be precise. And in terms of leads, the young millennials or even Gen Zs, so the 25 to 34-year-olds, that's 32%. So that was an increase from last year as well. So I think that the reason that millennials, in particular young millennials and even later older millennials, are looking at properties more, I guess, seriously now is because of the pandemic. You can draw theories that because there's no travel, because they can't spend on leisure, there's no restaurants, there's no malls, there's very limited excitement spending, which millennials are known for. The shift has been to a more stable type of investment like real estate. Many millennials are starting families for the first time. They're also moving up in the corporate ladder, so more disposable income. This all leads to trends on why millennials are our biggest demographic for page views and for leads entering into 2021. Not to mention or not to discredit baby boomers and Gen X. They have still a growing number, so 21% growth from 45 to 54-year-olds and 51% growth from 55 to 64-year-olds, but obviously the largest demographic coming from millennials. I think also worth noting, your Gen Zs, the age 18 to 24, have seen significant growth, a 90% growth in page views. So even though they're just out of college or even still within college, they are looking at real estate as a suitable investment for themselves. So this could be into the rental market, people looking for more independence, but also I think people just interested in what's out there at a young age, which is exciting because these people will be the soon-to-be buyers in the next few years. So you can see the growing trend of real estate all the way through the younger demographics, as young as 18 years old, looking at properties. And in terms of gender, so majority of our leads and property seekers are coming from the female demographic or gender group. So 61% are females and 39% are males. I think this is relevant in terms of who decision makers are in families. Also, with families who's considering or forecasting future growth and potential living situations. So, females being the primary in that aspect. Also, in terms of how you're going to market properties, if most of the demographic is going to be female, you probably want to market to cater to that mindset as well. So interesting stats here that the majority are female page views and increase. In terms of where locations or where they're coming from, Quezon City being 23%, Makati 8%, Manila 5%, Pasig and Parañaque about 3%. So most of the property seekers are coming from Quezon City. I think this is fairly on trend with what we've seen in the past. Quezon City being the most populated area in terms of residential locators. So it would make sense that the most property seekers are coming from Quezon City, which we do see historically as well. Overseas demand, majority coming from, or the most coming from Singapore, that's about 18.8%. Dubai, also about 17.5%. And then you have London, Sydney, and Doha all around 9%. So a fairly good mix, but the most coming from our Southeast neighbors in Singapore. In terms of what they're looking for exactly, the trend has been house at 35%, land following that at 28%. So land being probably the OFW market, looking to reinvest back in the Philippines, knowing that foreigners can't buy land. So house and land mostly coming from overseas market. And then the condo market, a mix of both expats and OFWs. You also then have apartments, foreclosures, and commercial all around under 10%. Page views by age and gender. So as we mentioned before, the millennials are taking the majority of it. So 30% going to 25 to 34-year-olds, and 35 to 44-year-olds about 22%. In terms of the total page views, fairly even mix in this one. So 51% going to males and 48% going to females. So to highlight, just to recap, so Singapore, home to 4% of total OFWs, was the top source of page views. Houses were the most popular in terms of property type, comprising of 34% of our seekers and 28% of our leads. And then majority of overseas property seekers were male. So within the Philippines, 60% are females. Overseas market, a more equal mix, about 50% male, 50% female. And then in terms of the demographic for overseas, 25 to 34-year-olds being the largest demand factor or demand group for overseas demand. Now let's talk about supply. So most popular locations within the metro. So Quezon City, the most popular. So that comprised of 32% in the housing market and 24 and 23% respectively in condo and apartments. We classify condos as high rises. So these are your typical studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom units. Those would be the standard condominiums, and then apartments being our low rise or unique condo or unique apartment units, whole floor units, or small low rise buildings being our apartment asset class. So roughly 50% going to either of those two asset classes. In terms of Makati, our second biggest in terms of page views, roughly 15%, 35% going to condos, just because of, I think, the city landscape, mostly made up of condos, so 35% going there, but also a fairly large amount going into the housing market. Those are your high-end villages within Makati. And then in Pasig, about 10% of our views going there, same as Quezon City, majority going to housing market, more space there. We also have a high number of high-end villages in Pasig, so 41%, and then the condo market and apartment market, roughly 40% in those types of asset classes. In terms of to gig, that's about 9% for us in terms of page views, mostly going into housing, 46%, and then condo and apartments trailing behind, about 26 and 13% in both of those. And Parañaque, same story, housing being the most popular, 38% there. Of course, more spread out in Parañaque, many villages there, BF, etc., which is why the majority go into the housing market. Now they're looking at the provincial cities. So our largest page views from the provinces came from Cebu. About 22% of our page views went to Cebu. Housing market 33%, apartment 30%, and condo 16%. Antipolo, very fast growth year on year for Antipolo, about 11.5% of our page views. This is a big jump from last year. 36% in the housing market. I think that Antipolo has risen in interest in the last, let's say, year or so due to the pandemic, because people are looking for fringe cities that are less expensive than Metro Manila, but very accessible. Antipolo being one of them, where land value is still affordable and can get good value for your investment. Baguio also, I think we'll see a large increase as time goes on. So we saw about 10% of our page views going to Baguio. Of course, with the completion of Skyway 3, connecting to NLEX, going all the way through NLEX, you hit Baguio, 30% going into the housing market and 22% into land. So people forecasting that Baguio will be a growing, interested provincial city in the future as well. Davao, that received about 9% of our page views, 35% in housing and 24% in apartment. And of course, Angeles, with Clark being a driver. You've got the airport there. You've got a growing city in the Clark Freeport district, close to Subic as well. So I think you'll see continued growth in Angeles area, 34% in housing, 21% in land. So that equated to about 8.5% of our page views, top 10 in most popular provincial cities for us. The growth forecast for residential property types in 2021, we expect that the condominiums will continue to grow. So 17.5% projected growth in the first half of 2021 compared to the first half of 2020. So we do see that people are still working in skeletal forces within the metro. People are still looking for rental opportunities, and people are looking at additional income streams. So those factors being into why condos are still driving a large amount of our page views and demand. Apartments also not far behind there at about 12%, continued expected growth. And foreclosures, interesting, 31% growth in year on year from H1 last year to H1 2021. People have foreclosed properties in the last year due to the pandemic. So to capitalize on that, riskier investment, but large potential for upsale. I think that people who are fairly risk averse, high holding power, will look at the foreclosure market as a viable option. Real estate overall over the last year has proven resilient despite the pandemic. Most developers that are listed companies, you have your blue chip companies like Ayala, MegaWorld, SM, to name some of the bigger ones, Vistaland, all have fully recovered. So I think that real estate in general is a stable investment compared to other industries. And while foreclosures are one of the most riskier investments, you can expect that they eventually will sell and with a significant premium, which is why I think we have a growing interest in foreclosures. The growth forecast for commercial, Muntinlupa seeing the biggest growth. So I think that's interesting. Definitely with the expansion of the Skyway, playing a big factor there. Also more development in the south. So about 18% of our forecasted commercial growth going into Muntinlupa. Then Taguig, following slightly behind that. So of course, BGC has new developments coming in. And you have the growth of Arca South also coming online, which is within Taguig City. Makati about 8.5, Pasig about 7, and Quezon City about 3.2. So all growing commercial districts, and that will and have seen forecasted growth as we enter 2021 as well. So some key trends to watch out for, amenities being one of the key factors for demand. So active lifestyle, leisure will be a continual popularity, 18% growth, and 18% of our searches going towards amenities. So work from home accessibility. So that means Wi-Fi, connectivity being a non-negotiable, a major factor in whether someone buys a property or not. You also see people putting a high premium on security, open spaces, and additional storage space. I think also due to the work from home environment, people needing more space, and also balconies, gardens, parking lots being a necessary amenity for someone looking to move into a property. All I think very, very correlated with the work from home environment. Foreseeable future will not change. The vaccine most likely not coming into the Philippines until maybe second half of this year. Frontliners being the first one. Mass vaccination, still no confirmation when. So I think for the foreseeable future and until the private sector gets accessibility to vaccine, work from home will still be probably the most dominated aspect on the buying market for someone moving into a new condo or property. So to summarize the last few slides, property seekers between 18 and 24, highest number of growth in page views in the second half of 2020, and that also is translating to 2021 figures as well. So whether or not they have the buying power to do so, the younger demographics are interested in properties and looking at that as a potential investment. Also, foreclosures are expected to boom into 2021. So if you have foreclosure listings, I would encourage everyone to continue to list them online. Also, I would encourage them to get the most relevant data and pictures for foreclosure properties. Many of our foreclosure properties online don't have photos, photos being one of the most important factors in a click. So if you look at our data, properties that have a picture will significantly have more clicks. And even though foreclosures are a growing trend, most of them don't have pictures, which will leave them to sit for a long time on the site. So foreclosures with pictures will see, I think, significant growth through the digital demand. Also, foreclosures are more difficult to see, obscure locations. So photos are increasingly more important in that market. Also, I think that we talked about commercial, so more companies loosening up in terms of operations or allowing for a skeletal force and that growing that percentage up to about 50% in terms of workforce within the office. So I think people will go back to the office soon. Of course, many companies have to abide by social distancing measures, regular testing, of course, but of course there's a skeletal force. So there is a need for close proximity to the office. Younger OFWs are considering investments in real estate. And lastly, spaces that are conducive to productivity. Those are the amenities, Wi-Fi factor, open spaces, security, all being non-negotiables now for property seekers. So thank you for your time today. If anyone has any further questions, happy to answer them. I know we're doing a question and answer section later, but a few closing remarks. Thank you again, NREA, for having me. We hope that we can continue this partnership for a very long time and provide you with data regularly. We do feel that the shift will be digital, especially in the real estate sector. Many people are looking online for properties. As I showed you earlier in the presentation, that we have over 6.3 million page views every month. That is a huge amount of traffic that we're getting, and that's only growing as the pandemic continues. So please go online, take good photos of properties. That definitely helps with the click-through factor. And if you have any questions about how to set up an account, if you're not online yet, I'd be happy to help you get started with that. Get started with that process as well. It's very simple, very easy. We have a great team that can help you manage your account and help you upload everything if you've never done it before. So thank you again, and looking forward to more events with you.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. We are so privileged to have you with us today.
Smart decisions. That's something everyone wants to make. Like when buying a new place. Do you go for location? Energy efficiency? A fresh breeze? Or having no brownouts? How about smart planning and engineering that give you all of these? Take a closer look at West Insula, where you get to live easier, live wiser. At West Insula, you get perks that make day-to-day living a greater comfort. Just think of these smart features. Full backup power. When brownouts happen in the rest of the city, keep the computer, air conditioner, and everything else you need up and running. West Insula provides full backup power in all rooms, in all units. Water saving system. When it comes to wise water management, West Insula is designed to collect, purify, and treat rainwater for use by homeowners, giving you practical savings. Smart vents. And how about staying cool even when the air conditioner is off? West Insula has well-concealed vents that promote optimal airflow through every room, even when the windows are closed. Maximum energy efficiency. West Insula is engineered for ultra-efficient energy consumption. Take advantage of the patented electrical loading system that delivers maximum power at minimum cost. What's more, Every homeowner gets to monitor their power consumption right at their doorstep, so you pay only for your own bills. No shared costs, no hidden charges. Atrium. Unique to the design of West Insula is the atrium, a central shaft of wide open space at the core of the structure, offering the added advantages of free-flowing air, natural light, and a relaxing ambiance. Ready to take a look? West Insula, built by EGI and Maryleaf Realty, stands tall with 25 stories at the corner of West Avenue and EDSA Shopping District. A train station, medical clinics, and malls are also just a few minutes away, so you don't have to go far to get far. Intelligent innovations at prime locations. That's what smart engineering for practical living is all about. See one of Insula Condominium's masterpieces for yourself. Schedule a visit to West Insula today. Make the smart move.
Thank you, EGI. Thank you for always being so supportive to NREA's events and endeavors. Now, we proceed to the introduction of our next speaker. Let's give a round of applause to our member of the Board of Advisors and past president and past chair lady, Architect Grace S. Layu.
Good morning, everybody. Dr. Bernardo Malvar Villegas is a visiting professor of IESE Business School in Barcelona, a professor at the University of Asia and the Pacific, and a research director of the Center for Research and Communication. He has a PhD in economics from Harvard University and is a certified public accountant, having been one of the CPA board top-notchers. He obtained bachelor's degrees in commerce and the humanities, both summa cum laude, from De La Salle University, where he established a record by obtaining straight A's in the LEA Com course, which is a 5-year program that he finished in 4 years. At Harvard, at the age of 21, he was one of the youngest ever to be a teaching fellow in the College of Arts and Sciences. He has received several prestigious awards, such as the 10 Outstanding Young Men in 1972, Fulbright Johnson Foundation, Asia Foundation, and the Instituto de Cultura Hispanica. He is currently a member of the advisory boards of leading national and multinational firms. He served in the boards of the Bank of the Philippine Islands, Globe Telecom, Insular Life, McDonald's, and IBM. He has served in the boards of leading non-governmental organizations like the Makati Business Club, Filipino Shell Foundation, FINMA Foundation, the Parents for Education Foundation, and the Dual Tech Foundation. He was a member of the Constitutional Commission that drafted the Philippine Constitution under the government of former President Corazon Aquino. In 1992, Dr. Villegas was appointed member of the Council of Economic Advisors of then-President Ramos. In 1998, he was asked by President Estrada to help promote the Philippines among local and foreign investors. Under President Arroyo, he served as a private sector representative in the boards of the National Development Corporation and the Philippine Infrastructure Corporation. Under the administration of President Benigno Aquino III, he helped government agencies to promote investments in the Philippines. He continues to promote investments under the Duterte administration, especially in the regions outside the National Capital Region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome Dr. Bernardo Malvar Villegas.
Morning to all the officers and members of NREA. I consider myself a very close friend of the real estate sector. In fact, through the years, I've had a good number of get-togethers with you. And I think this very trying times of the pandemic would require our having another important conversation. I'm afraid that I have to tell you that as regards the next 6 to 18 months, I will no longer be the so-called prophet of boom. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic and what I foresee as more lockdowns, as we are hit by the new varieties of COVID-19 coming from the UK, South Africa, Brazil, and other places, constantly mutating into even worse versions. I am not seeing a real recovery of the Philippine economy in 2021. So to already let you know, my forecast is probably one of the lowest among the many forecasts being made about this year. I'm sure you've read forecasts about 6, 7, even 8% growth in 2021. Mine is 4%, happening mostly in the last quarter. And in the coming months, I foresee more lockdowns that are happening at this very moment in Cebu and in other places which are being hit once again by second, third waves. And that is why I think the president was very wise in deciding in favor of health and not in favor of the economy. I know it was a very painful decision, and I sympathize very much with Economic Planning Secretary Chua about his desire to lessen the restriction. But my reading is, number one, we are not prepared to roll out the vaccine for some time. I think my expectation is the vaccine will be distributed more widely only towards the last quarter of this year. And in fact, as an educator, I will tell you that physical classes will be made possible only in the first quarter of 2022, which means that consumption will not recover in any significant way. As you very well know, consumption is 70% of GDP. And if consumption doesn't recover, growth will not go back to its original 6 to 7% that we experienced for 10 years before the pandemic. So that's the outlook. Not very promising over the next 6, 12, even 18 months. However, the question is there light at the end of the dark tunnel that we're going through because of the pandemic? That is where I can go back to my role as the prophet of boom. My answer is definitely there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that will come partly in 2022 as we can grow at about 6%, and then 2023 and beyond, believe it or not, our potential to grow at 8 to 10% is very real. And you don't have to believe me. That's why I have a series of slides in the PowerPoint presentation I will be presenting to you, where outside think tanks, financial institutions are very, very bullish about the Philippine economy. If you take a look at the next 5 to 10 years. So long term, the Philippines is going to be one of the most attractive investment sites in not only Indo-Pacific, but in the whole world. And so I want to make sure that I provide evidence for what I'm saying, and that is why let's start with the PowerPoint presentation. Here you have what we call the American century, which was the last century, versus this present century, which is the Asian century. I'm sure you remember, those of us especially who have been around for some time, that in the last century, the US was without doubt supreme globally, economically, politically, militarily. From time to time, there were challenges from Japan and from Europe, but they never surpassed the US in its global power. This century is different. The century is called the Asian century, where the economy that's going to dominate is obviously China, and India and the ASEAN Economic Community will participate. That is why the American century had 3 participants: US, Europe, and Japan. The Asian century will also have 3 participants: China, India, and the ASEAN Economic Community, to which we belong. If you take a look at the lower tables, before the pandemic, the American century countries were growing, struggling to grow at 0.8% for Japan, 1.8% for Europe, and 2.9% for the US. While if you take a look at the Asian century countries, we were growing at 5.2 for the ASEAN, and I'm sure you remember we were above average. We were growing at 6 to 7%. India was growing at 7.1 and 6.6. China. Once things go back to normal, or at least to the new reality, those growth rates will not change very much. We in the Indo-Pacific will continue to grow at 2 to 3 times the rate of the American century countries. And the reason is, first of all, they already have very high per capita incomes. They cannot grow at 6 to 8%. But a second, more serious reason is practically all of them, with exception of the US as regards its non-white population, all of them have fallen into what we call a demographic crisis. They're aging so fast. The number of example is Japan, that it is very difficult for the economy to grow at 5, 6%. So demographic suicide is the problem of the developed countries, which include a lot of our Northeast Asian neighbors: South Korea, Taiwan, even China, as we are going to discuss, is already suffering from demographic suicide. But we are very fortunate. This is our first fundamental. We are right in the middle of the Asian century countries. If you take a look at the Philippines, we are at the epicenter. And this area is fortunate. It has not fallen into the America First Brexit protectionism of the developed countries. We are still open to trading with one another, and trade is always an engine of growth. And we're fortunate that we are in the right place at the right time. I call that our geographic dividend. Next, please. Next slide. I just want to remind all of you of what many of you, I'm sure, remember. More than 15 years ago, there was an economist of the bank Goldman Sachs by the name of Gene O'Neill, who coined the acronym BRIC: Brazil, Russia, India, China. Unfortunately for Brazil and Russia, over the years, their leaders mismanaged their economies. So no one today is excited about Brazil or Russia. India and China remain to be very attractive, and now we add ourselves, the ASEAN Economic Community. You know, some years back, when the BRIC leaders were meeting in China, they felt guilty that there was no African country. They were afraid of being accused of discrimination. So they added South Africa, the most developed African country. But if you take a look at the figure, it's obvious that the figure of South Africa is very far from the figures of the other countries. And now South Africa is also in trouble because their leaders mismanage their finances. Next, please. Next. The same economist of Goldman Sachs added 11 other emerging engines of growth. These countries are still very much in the running. Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Philippines, South Korea, Turkey, and Vietnam. You will notice that among the next 11, only 3 from the ASEAN are included. And very easy to remember, VIP, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines. The 3 largest economies, population-wise, in the ASEAN. Very rich in natural resources and leaders improving significantly how they manage their respective economies. The economy to cite as outstanding is Vietnam. Vietnam, as probably some of you know, surpassed us in GDP per capita in 2020. Up to 2020, we were still ahead of Vietnam. But in 2020, Vietnam has a higher per capita income than the Philippines. And the reasons are Vietnam has attained agricultural productivity way above the Philippines. Number 2, Vietnam has been very open to foreign direct investments, not like us, still very close to foreign direct investments. And the final reason, as you very well know, is Vietnam managed the pandemic in such an effective way that there are very low rates of the sickness. We will no longer be able to surpass Vietnam, but we can still grow at very rapid rates if we're able to follow some of the examples set by Vietnam and our other very successful neighbors. Next, please. This was just last November. So this was during the height of the pandemic. And one of the most prestigious think tanks in the world, Oxford Economics, came out with the 10 leading emerging markets that will dominate the global economy in the next decade. And surprise, surprise, the Philippines, according to this very prestigious institute, and that it has no reason to issue propaganda about us, it bases its assessment on very clear data. We are number 2 to India. Indonesia is number 3, and China is number 4. Why is it that China is number 4 if you take a longer period of 10 years or more? China right now is the one growing fastest after the pandemic, together with Vietnam and Taiwan. Only 3 countries that posted a positive growth rate in 2020. But why is it that if you take a longer term, from 5 to 10 years, China is not number 1? Because China will fall flat on its face in the next 10 years because of its very rapid aging. Because of its one-child policy, there's so many old people now in China and not enough young people to take care of them. In fact, that is an opportunity for Filipinos in the future to go to China and help them address, especially the shortage of nurses, health workers, even teachers. Next, please. Very recently, the Center for Economic Business Research, also based in London, came out with a projection of the world economy in 2030. And take a look at the Philippines. We are going to be the most improved country in 2030. We will improve our ranking from number 32 in 2020 to only number 25 in 2030. If you take a look at the improvement, we are going to be the most improved in 2030. Again, another independent think tank, the Center for Economic Business Research, has presented this data. Next, please. The prestigious economist, The Economist, that's a publication I'm sure many of you read, came out with a list of emerging economies ranked on 4 measures of financial strength. And the Philippines was ranked number 6. Take a look at the countries we surpassed. Thailand, Saudi Arabia, China, Vietnam, Indonesia. Why do you think the economist thinks highly of our financial strength? The reason is because over more than a decade, we have been building institutions in the financial sector. First of all, we have one of the best central banking systems now in Southeast Asia, run by very competent and very independent professionals, now headed by Dr. Jogno. But you can be sure, when the present leaders no longer are there, there's a pool of many other financial experts who can take over. The same thing can be said about our fiscal sector, now headed by Secretary Dominguez. We, in fact, are being praised for having maintained our debt to GDP ratio at a very prudent level of 30 to 40%. Just for you to know what are the figures in other countries. Figures in other countries can be as much as 100 to 200% of their GDP is in debt, like Japan, the US, Italy, Spain, Greece. The Philippines has been very prudent. And that is why it is very providential. Because as you know, today we have to borrow, because the government is not making any money through taxes for obvious reasons. But we can borrow because our credit standing is very good. We will see that later on. And actually, that leads me to the important statement that 4% that I foresee for 2021 will come more from government spending than from the private sector. From the build infrastructure program and from the higher budgets that the government will have to devote to education, to health, to social amelioration. And that is why the government is borrowing a lot and building our international reserves so that our peso is very strong, which in my opinion is not exactly a good thing. Do you know why? I don't like the peso at 48 to 49 to remain for a long time, because we are doing a disservice the 10 million overseas workers who are sweating it out abroad, and they send their dollars to the Filipino relatives and they get only 48 for 49. They should be getting, in my opinion, 50 to 51. The same thing you can say about the 1.2 million workers in the BPO IT, who are the ones actually making your office space in real estate very much in demand. The same thing, they're earning $25 billion, but they are converted at 48 to 49, which I think is not. So that is my opinion, and I'm sure the other people in government have other views. You may say, but that is determined by the market. No, the foreign exchange rate can be managed intelligently, as other countries have done in the past. Next, please. This is the longest term forecast ever made by the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. And take a look at what Shanghai Bank says. In 2050, some of you may be wondering, are we still going to be alive? I'm sure some of you who are, let's say, below 40 will still be alive. No? But the data are very clear. According to Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, in 2050, the Philippines will be the 16th largest economy in the world. And look at the countries we will surpass: Indonesia, Australia, Argentina, Malaysia, Thailand, the Netherlands, very important countries. So here is another testimony to the fundamentals of the Philippine economy. Next, please. This is what I was referring to. The Japan Credit Rating Agency upgraded our credit rating from BBB plus to A minus. That's very significant. That's telling creditors of all over the world, don't hesitate to lend to the Philippines. They can repay their loans. that definitely is a good news when we are struggling under the pandemic to help our population survive. Next, please. Let me just summarize what I have said so far. What are the fundamentals that make independent institutions and individuals very optimistic about us? So, the first one, we have a young, growing, and English-speaking population, which makes our 10 million workers abroad possible. I'm sure in the real estate sector, you are very interested in selling to these 10 million overseas workers and their relatives. And I'm sure many of you rejoiced in the news that in 2020, despite the fact that almost 300,000 of our overseas workers had to return home because they were laid off, especially in the Middle East, the remittances from them declined by less than 1% in 2020. That's a fantastic news, which means that the ones who are still there are still earning enough and are very generous to help their suffering relatives. And that is why there was not a big drop in the remittances. And I expect 2021 that we will actually have already an increase of about 3%. And now, having referred to them, let me already make a statement about real estate sector. In real estate sector, the segments suffering at all are the economic, housing, and low-cost housing segments. Pricing of anywhere from 800,000 to about 5 million. If you are in this segment, you have nothing to worry about. The demand is there. There's still 10 million workers abroad whom you can sell to, and there are the 1.2 million workers, many of them still single, but are looking for reasonable units precisely at 800,000 to 5 million that belong to the economic and low-cost housing. The segment that is suffering is the very expensive, especially residential unit. Anything beyond 10 million. There's a surplus now, there's a glut. And the good news, however, for you is that the ones who have bought these units are from the top 2 to 3% rich people in our population. And they're not going to panic. They're not going to start selling because there is a surplus of these units that they cannot rent out many of their units. They will just wait. And waiting is definitely a very reasonable stance to take, because 3 years from now, when the economy starts growing at 8 to 10%, you will see exactly what happened to Henry C. and the Gokonways and so on and so forth, when they were very wise in 1986 after the EDSA revolution, and they started buying galore, and they benefited a lot for their foresight. My message to those who have enough money to be able to survive and not sell their units or even buy land during this period. If you have investable funds, the most profitable investment you can make is not on Bitcoin, not on US dollar and so on and so forth, but on raw land. So be a Henry C. in 1986, because by 2024, 2025, there will be a boom in the Philippine real estate industry in the same way that we saw what happened after the EDSA revolution. It is very, let's say, providential that today we are celebrating the EDSA revolution, and that's why I can refer to great decisions of the real estate magnates who made a lot of money by having faith in the Philippine economy. I already referred to geographic dividend. So we are right smack in the middle of the most dynamic region in the world. Now, let me explain the temporal dividend. That's also very important for real estate business people. You probably remember that just before the pandemic, our economists were telling us that the Philippines was moving from being a low middle income economy, which means we were still below $4,000 per capita, to an upper middle income economy, which means that we will surpass $4,000 capita, moving towards $10,000 per capita. And that movement in world history will show you that that is the magic range in which demand for consumer goods and services literally explodes. So in the next 10 to 20 years, when we move from low middle income to upper middle income, our domestic market will be extremely attractive for anything you can think of in terms of industry and services. And so now is the time to be very optimistic. Those who are millennials and centennials were born at the right time and in the right place, because they will see the Philippines moving towards becoming a first world economy in the next 10 to 20 years. Those of us who were born in the last century, especially the baby boomers, the Generation X people, were very unlucky. We saw the Philippines going from one of the most promising economies in the 50s, next only to Japan, to the sick man of Asia by the end of the last century. But I'm sure those of you who belong to this generation are happy at least that your children and your grandchildren will not face the same problem. We have very abundant natural resources, especially as regards tourism, which also obviously affects real estate. I'm sure many of you read the news that an international magazine on tourism and travel ranked Palawan as the #1 island resort in the world, besting Bali, Hawaii, and other so-called paradise islands. And Palawan has 2,000 islands, as you very well know. And there are hundreds of other islands that can come close to Palawan. So which means the moment international tourism recovers in 2023, we will be one of the preferred destinations of the hundreds of millions of tourists who will now start flocking from China, from South Korea, from Japan, from Taiwan. We don't even have to depend on the Western tourists. Our region, being the most dynamic region, will have the most tourists, especially from China. And that is why we have to keep friendly relations with these neighboring countries, even if they have political differences. There will be the #1 tourists in the world in the coming 10 years. And they will look for island resorts like Palawan, like Panglao, like Siargao, like Siquijor, like I can mention so many others. I am not mentioning Boracay, which is overrated. There are many, many more places better than Boracay. Then the government will be the #1 engine of growth this year, as I said, build, build, build. And I think the government will have learned from its mistakes last year when they did not spend their budget for build, build, build. I think this year, I see them mobilizing better. And not to mention that by the second half of this year, all local government officials will be very eager to show to their constituents that they're building, building, building. Why? Because elections will be in May 2022. So the prospect of election will contribute to the recovery in 2022. Now, here is where I have advice for you real estate people. The good news is economic activities are moving out of Manila, Metro Manila, to other more promising metropolitan areas. The first is towards Calabarzon, especially Batangas. If you take a look at that corridor in Batangas, hundreds of factories are now established there. First Philippine Holdings, the Ayalas, the Aboitises, name any large industrial estate, and they're all there in that corridor from Calamba all the way to the Batangas port. That will be the next Metro Manila. And definitely, as you see, real estate is now going from Alabang to New Valley to Santa Rosa to Binyang, etc., etc. And the governor of Batangas is very forward-looking. It is going to endow Batangas with some of the first-class infrastructures. A railway from Calamba to the Batangas seaport, another airport approximating what Ramon Ang is building in Bulacan, somewhere in Batangas, and a doubling of the capacity of the Batangas seaport. Batangas will definitely outshine Metro Manila as a trading center. And that's why I'm already telling you, buy in that corridor. If you are in real estate, that's the first priority. The second priority, and even for some of you, a first priority, it is so-called Pampanga Triangle, San Fernando, Angeles, Clark, and Subic. Especially once that railroad is built by the Japanese from Clark to Bulacan to Manila, that is going to boom as another metropolitan area. In the Visayas, my number one candidate is Iloilo. Cebu is like Manila. It's congested, too much traffic, and that's why people will look for an alternative to Cebu. And Iloilo is the beautiful, in terms of infrastructure, alternative to Cebu. Especially once they finish that bridge from Iloilo to Guimaras, all the way to Bacolod. So you will have Bacolod and Iloilo merging to be an inter-island metropolis. In Mindanao, it's no brainer. Davao is going to be the metropolis that will take the place of Metro Manila to some extent. Those of you in real estate know that some prices in Davao right now are even higher than prices in Metro Manila. So that's the good news. Okay, to end, next, please. Everything is not a bed of roses. So I think I've been very optimistic about the long term, but we have a lot of homework to do, our generation. I include myself. I'm willing to help you, younger generation. But the first is to address our biggest weakness, our low agricultural productivity. We stand out like a sore thumb compared to Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia. And I'm glad that we have a very good Secretary of Agriculture, William Dar, is laying the foundation for a long-term growth in agricultural productivity. It was very notable that last year, in the second quarter, when our economy was dropping by more than 11%, the only sector that grew was agriculture. That was almost like a miracle. But that was a sign that if we do something about it, we can improve our agricultural productivity. Despite the fact that today we're struggling against pork prices, vegetable prices, but those challenges can be met. We still have a lot of obstacles doing business, bureaucracy, red tape. And my contribution there is to push what Speaker Velasco is trying to push in Congress, amending the Constitution so that we will allow more foreign direct investments. There is a shortage of certain skills in the construction industry, and that of course affects real estate. And the reason here is not economic, it is psychosociological. Our population is still biased against being electricians, plumbers, masons, etc., etc. And I think the pandemic is solving part of that problem. As you probably know, 2.7 million of our students, especially in private sector, dropped out of school this school year. Many of those are going to look for alternative ways of acquiring skills, not through college, but through short courses, technical schools, and they will no longer look down on being plumbers, electricians, carpenters. They have to survive, and I think the pandemic will force them not to be so obsessed with college diplomas. We still have high rates of electricity, among the highest still in Asia. The good news is practically all the large conglomerates are building power plants. The bad news for the ecologists is most of them are still coal-powered. But that we have to address in the long term, thanks to very far forward-looking groups like the Ayalas. They are investing heavily in solar, even if they are not seeing returns yet. But in the long run, we will definitely see the renewable energies dominating. The next problem is something that we have to grapple with for a long, long time. Corruption and poor governance. My consolation is that I see first world countries like South Korea and Malaysia that are already very developed but still have not eradicated corruption. So which means that as long as our economic policies are the right policies, we can live with some amount of corruption, although we should fight corruption tooth and nail, not because of economic development, but because of morality. Corruption is immoral, period. High frequency of natural calamities. There's nothing else we can do but be prepared for typhoons, for earthquakes, for volcanoes. And I think little by little, we're building the institutions for preparedness against natural calamities. I'll end here and just respond to some of your questions for those that I have not answered. Thank you very much.
Welcome,
Um,
Real Homes Incorporated, your home of choice. One of the leading housing developers in the Philippines. We are the subsidiary of Golden Villa Holdings Incorporated, the third largest real estate company in the country in terms of market capitalization that is valued at more than 200 billion pesos. With over 50 projects nationwide, we are present in Luzon, Bataan, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Pampanga, Bulacan, Rizal, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Camarines Sur, Visayas, Negros Oriental, Leyte, Samar, Cebu, and Mindanao, Misamis Oriental, Bukidnon, Davao de Oro, Davao del Norte, Davao del Sur, North Cotabato, South Cotabato. Homeowners can be assured of their safety with the 24/7 security at the guarded entrances. Own your Alexa single firewall for as low as 9,252 pesos per month. Live in your Batina townhouse for as low as 6,591 pesos per month. Get your Eliana row house for as low as 2,994 pesos per month. Own your own condo unit for as low as 13,132 pesos per month. We are Bria Homes Incorporated, your home of choice.
In life, we are always in search of something better. Better jobs, better lifestyle, better investments. Here at Forest Lake, we offer you an alternative, an extraordinary, and a better experience through My Forest Lake portal. Our online portal gives you access to viewing and purchasing of memorial lots safely and conveniently from your home. It provides a place where you can centralize the management of your memorial lot investments with easy access to customer information and services. Registering in My Forest Lake is easy. Just follow these 3 easy steps. Creating a new account is simple. Go to www.forestlakememorialparks.com. Click on Customers on the upper right corner of the site and you will be directed to the My Forest Lake customer portal. Step 1. Click the link and fill out the form or register using your Facebook account by simply clicking on Login with Facebook. Step 2. Input necessary details as needed. And click Next. Step 3. Verify your mobile phone or registered email. Congratulations! You have successfully registered your account. Enjoy a faster, easier, and more secure way of managing your Forest Lake investment at the palm of your hands. View and purchase lots within the safety and comfort of your home. Take advantage of online services exclusive to registered customers. No more long lines when paying your dues. You can now pay through our secure payment options and documented online transactions. You can even chat with our customer service representatives for any concerns. Convenient, right? For inquiries, email us at customerportal@forestlakeparks.com or contact our branch office. Sign up now and start enjoying a better online experience now with Forest Lake. Visit www.forestlakememorialparks.com or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Sign up today and start your investment journey with Forest Lake.
So our grateful appreciation to Bria and Forest Lake. Thank you so much. So we encourage everyone, if at all you have questions, you may use the chat box for your questions and will later be read by our moderators. Thank you. So we now come to our open forum. It is with zest that I present to you our moderators today. First is the member of the Board of Advisors and 3 times past national president and 3 times chairman, Mr. Andy Manyala. And of course, our Chair Emerita and Chair Lady of the Board of Advisors, the beautiful Miss Marisa Del Mar. So I now turn over the program to you, Mr. Andy and Miss Marisa. Take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, or sa ating real estate, it's always good morning. I would like to say thank you so much. It's a wonderful webinar again for NREA. Mabuhay, NREA. And thank you so much because we are celebrating now our 30th anniversary for NREA. Of course, we are celebrating also because of the goodness of our founder, Jose V. Manalad. We are very grateful to you. Now, we would like to thank, of course, our great speakers for today. From Dr. Bernardo Villegas, thank you so much. And I have been a good friend of Tito Doding Villegas. Our CEO, Kenneth Stern, of course, of Lamudi. And of course, Dr. Angel Aguila, our very own from DISU. Thank you so much. Now, on my first question, I would like to give the first question to Dr. Aguila, our good friend. This suit was reported to have waived the penalties reportedly up to March 31 for 2021 for the late registration of our real estate brokers and salesperson, as you have mentioned earlier. Thank you for that. Are there any more relief measures that DSUD and the key shelter agencies could provide our real estate practitioners anymore?
Well, first, Marisa, DIR director ako, not doctor, okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Sorry. Attorney,
It's okay. But
Attorney Angel Aguila, of course, our DSUD OIC director. Thank you.
it's okay. I wanted to be a doctor before. Anyway,
Yes.
we are really seriously working on coming up with our online registration, renewal, and all the transactions for brokers and salespersons. But just to clarify, we would have started with the MOA already, but there were some hindrances. We just have to make sure we start at the right footing because we realize there might be a procurement procedure because it might be a zero purchase, but there are certain requirements how much convenience fee can be imposed based on some DTI and DOF regulations, which we read. So we are just trying to iron out all those issues before we can proceed to the MOA signing with the prospective provider. So that will be a great relief for all brokers and salespersons. And secondly, we are really working hard with PRC, PRBRES, and we have drafted a joint memorandum circular for the campaign against illegal real estate service practice, yung po mga unregistered real estate brokers, unaccredited salespersons going into project selling, and those selling unlicensed projects, ganyan po. We are really bent on going against them because we know that you work hard for your profession, you go to your regular, what do you call that, your compliance, in order to update yourselves. These people, they did not work for their profession. It's not a profession, but it's unfair for all of you, and it's unfair for the buying public because they cannot provide the same quality service that you as trained professionals doing the kind of real estate service. So we are really bent on coming up with the joint memorandum circular for the protection, not just of the registered practitioners, but also for better protection for our buying public. That's basically the two measures or policies ahead of us.
Ayun. Thank you so much, DSUD Director Attorney Angel. So it's very clear that we would like to add dignity and of course respect to our brokers and salesperson, and DSUD is one with us. So tandaan nyo po, basta anything about housing, compliance, regulations, whatever, Attorney Angel is very open, available, and willing for our NREA family and the housing industry as well. Thank you, Attorney Angel. Kapatid Andy, any more questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Emerita. Thank you very much for that very fully loaded presentation, Attorney Aguila. Actually, I can just imagine kung gaano ka-loaded yung trabaho niyo dyan sa DSUD, no? But before my question, I would like to give way to Vice Chair Ricky because he has a very important question for you.
Good morning, Attorney Angel again. Follow through on the presentation you had earlier. I have a couple of questions. The first one is we're really looking forward to the TWG on the adjustments of the price ceilings. As you know, we already submitted NREA, SHEDA, and OSDAP a joint recommendation for the personalities who we suggest to the Secretary to sit on the National Housing Board. And also we submitted a position paper, again jointly with SHEDA and OSDAP, on the price ceiling recommendation as well. The first question would be, would you have a timeline on when the discussions can start, and would it happen within the year 2021? The second question is more of a clarification regarding Department Order Number 3. As I read Section 5, it mentions that your undertaking would specify the mode of compliance that you will intend to use in the future for your main project. And there's also a pro forma undertaking attached to the DO, which somehow asks for the information of the specific project and location already. Would there be a disconnect there somehow, Attorney Angel? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay. With respect to the first one, we have already, we'll be issuing, there are two committees for the purpose of the review of the standards for socialized and economic housing. One is our internal committee. We are about to review your proposal. I understand you have a simpler proposal for the standards and the corresponding price adjustment. We'll just have a quick look at that and prepare ourselves before we meet your representatives. We will be inviting your representative to join our working committee for the initial review of the standards. We'll go to the standards first, and after we have finalized the standards, maybe along with that, we will review the appropriate provision for the price ceiling. Okay. Hopefully by March we can start.
Wow.
Okay. Hopefully, but we are really working on that kasi
Okay.
you've been following up on that. Yes, okay.
Magkasal tayong lahat.
Okay.
Okay.
On the
Thank you,
second
Vice.
question, yes, there will be an undertaking wherein the developers would have to indicate their proposed. It's going to be a proposed socialized housing compliance. There's a pro forma undertaking, but we will be issuing an MC because there might be a disconnect later on if there will be a substitution, which might need an amendment of the, not of the license itself, but an amendment to the annotation. So it's just, but just for uniformity of implementation, we will be coming up with an MC on how to annotate or state in the license to sell the nature of the proposed socialized housing project, and later on a provision on just in case of substitution, how do you go about in re-annotating that on the license to sell. So I understand your concern, there might be a disconnect, but we will be issuing an MC to address that. But in the meantime, you can proceed with licensing based on the proposed socialized housing project, and some regions are asking some clarifications, but in the meantime, we will be giving them some guidelines until we get to issue the memorandum circular for the specific guidelines themselves. Okay.
But the initial information that will be asked is more of a mode of compliance rather than the specific socialized housing project. Is that correct? Because at this point, there may not be a specific project yet because it's going to be required in the midstream of the main project anyway. So at this point, the information may not be available.
Oh, okay. So I think it will be enough if you have to state there that you will develop your own project, you will go into joint venture.
Okay.
In general,
it's more
joint
of a
venture with another
mode of compliance, attorney.
Yeah, but not the name of the project or the location. Yeah,
Okay.
that's that is certainly subject to change. A lot of changes later.
All right, understood. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ma'am Marisa.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Advisor Andy, can you do a follow-up question?
Yes.
Thank you, Attorney Angel.
Yes, thank you very much, Khatid. In Attorney Angel, in some published reports, this was quoted as saying that in 2021, it expressed the need to operationalize the creation of one-stop shops in the regions. Any developments on this, sir?
Okay. The process itself, the procedure, we are in coordination with ARTA. In fact, it's the main function of ARTA to streamline the procedure, and they are zeroing in on the one-stop or the housing one-stop processing center. And it's supposed to be established in all our regional offices. Along with that, we are really finding ways on how to come up with our bigger regional office and how to establish and where do we get our funds for bigger offices for the regional office to house this one-stop processing center. But the main challenge ahead of us is really getting all these different agencies to be cooperative and to support this housing one-stop processing center. And ARTA is helping us in that big challenge ahead of us.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We hope to see that very soon.
Yes, we Advisor Andy, we just have one more question here for Attorney Angel, and I think this is also very important. You are aware, Attorney Angel, that a lot of our real estate organizations are really very adamant and protesting about the price ceiling of the socialized housing. Could you comment on this?
Well, Ricky Celis was asking me the timetable for that. We'll go first with the review of the standards because the concern is it's too complicated, it's tiered, there are several levels, and then there's an issue on the corresponding lot sizes. It's not workable. You point something for the floor areas or for the lot area. So we'll go on that, and then as soon as we are more or less, as soon as we have come up with the definitive standards, not just for the socialized, because it also need to address the economic, because we increase the socialized floor area, it already reached the the level for the economic. So there's a corresponding adjustment needed. And as soon as we get into that, we're done with that more or less. We can now start with the price ceiling review. I understand the concern for really to address this. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Attorney Angel. Advisor Andy, can you please shoot the first question to our CEO, Kenneth Stern?
Okay. Good to see you again, Kenneth. I hope you're staying safe there in your quarantine. Now, for my first question, this year, the implementation of the VAT on the purchase of housing units up to 2 million reportedly will be covered by VAT now. What are your views on the effect of this to the local housing market?
Yeah, good to see you, Andy. Yeah, pleasure to be here. And yeah, it's an interesting point that you bring up. I think that there will be a multiplier effect. Essentially, it's going to be more difficult for the lower income class to buy, and the impact of the train could repel against developers and low cost shelter. So it can basically struggle to help recoup given the rising cost of land and construction. So I think that Philippines has been dynamic, especially in the luxury market for buyers, and that segment has enough resource to hold to the existing property, but they may churn or choose a income generating asset instead. So property seekers looking for affordable segment should invest, I think, and take advantage of the value appreciation of the properties in the future. But according to passing on the VAT to home buyers, there will be rising prices and making it more difficult for Filipinos to essentially have the home that they call their own one day.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Very well said. CEOs Kenneth Stern, Marisa here. I would like to ask you, good afternoon. I would like to ask you if we are opening the construction business to the foreigners, will this be beneficial to the housing industry or the economy as well?
I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it would be. I think that knowledge sharing, obviously, foreign financing are always good things. I think that and just to kind of relate it back to my recent trip to Pakistan, where I saw some foreign construction firms there work. The knowledge that they have in certain markets, they can definitely bring it to the Philippines. We look at some certain examples recently. You have the Idesa Lipa master plan by Japan's Hanshi. So, there has been foreign construction in the past. Valaris Residences by Robinson's Land was by Hong Kong Land. Seasoned Residence in BGC by Federal Land is also had a Japanese company, Nomura Real Estate Development, involved, and Mitsusaki Holdings. So, there are examples of it, and I think just in general, it could bring some more value to the private sector, and I think definitely the amount of technology that will be shared, resources, will be a beneficial a resource for the Philippine economy and for the real estate economy in general in the Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. Kenneth. Advisor Andy, question please from our chat group.
Yes, we have a question from one of our advisors, Mr. Mars Mendoza, and asks, he's speaking on behalf of the developers now. So first, I'd like to congratulate you on your very nice presentation. Now, I'd like to ask if you can comment on why the U.S. housing market is on a roll and defying other industries which are going south.
So I think that the U.S. housing market is it has to do with interest rates, and I think I also think the stability as well. So you can see correlations between that and what's happening in the Philippines. So the Philippines are also at all-time lows, record lows for interest rates, which I think is also stimulating the economy locally. And whether the local banks will also lower their interest rates based on what the BSP has done, we'll soon see. But I think that in general, banks are open to lowering interest rates for certain clients, and we will see hopefully lower interest rates from the banks as well. But I think that will definitely stimulate the economy. In terms of struggling industries, I think it's just very unstable right now globally. We don't know how things will unfold. It's still up in the air for many industries, and I think that because of restricted services, restrictions with liquidity. There are a number of reasons why real estate would be the most stable. And I think that you can definitely see that in the Philippines. They are trying their best they can to stimulate the economy, especially in the real estate. The RRR, the access to cash from the government has been potentially going to be slashed again this year. You have the residential real property price index also rising. So that means that there are giving out more loans. I think just in general, the real estate will, I guess, throughout many pandemics or many global financial crises, will remain a viable investment for most people looking for safety for investments. I invest my money in multiple different channels, and I've, since the pandemic started, I'm grateful, have pulled them out of most of my previous investments and put them all into real estate. And I've seen fairly stable growth, but at the same time a positive growth. And I mentioned before that almost all developers in the Philippines that are listed companies have basically fully recovered to pre-pandemic numbers. And I think you see very similar in the US and also in REITs globally that they've basically all really recovered, whereas many industries aren't at recovery yet, and unforeseen when they will hit recovery.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO Kenneth. Advisor Andy, I'll just ask Mr. Kenneth one question. There is now a bill in the Congress or in the House of Representatives and the Senate that proposes to include the reporting with the Anti-Money Laundering Act or AMLA, any real estate transactions that will be at the rate of 7.5 million. What is your reaction on this? Transactions on 7.5 million on real estate.
I think in regards to anti-money laundering and real estate transactions, it gets quite simple. What my belief is and what we believe as a company is we believe in transparency, trust, professionalism. So we'll always err on the side of those values. We do have a partnership that we forged a long time ago with HLURB, companies like yourself, organizations like yourself and other professional groups in the Philippines that we align with. So we are definitely in favor of keeping it as professional as possible. And I think any regulation around that will be a positive impact on the industry. So, we believe in those values, of course, same as you.
That's very good. That's very safe, CEO Kenneth. That's right.
One last question, Chair.
Yes.
I have just observed that in the presentation of Dr. Villegas, he was really very strong on his emphasis on the growth of the Calabarzon area, specifically Batangas.
Yeah.
However, in the slides that you have, where you have the preferred provinces or cities outside Metro Manila, that the Calabarzon was not even mentioned.
We have seen growth in those areas. I think that we do see, just in terms of page views, we do see more in Cebu, Davao, but not to say that we haven't seen growth in Calabarzon. It's just not to the volume that we've seen in those markets. And the growth in Antipolo, I mentioned, has been significant growth year on year. So it's worth mentioning. But Calabarzon, I think, has been on the radar for a while now. So most people are aware of it. And I think, we look at just the e-commerce industry, logistic facilities, mostly operating, outside of the metro, and kind of within Cavite, Laguna area as well. Most of our major warehouses in the Philippines are based there. So I think commercially, yes, a completely viable option. I think in terms of residential space as well, that area is slowly growing. So with the Skyway opening up, you can basically get from all the way in the south, all the way up north in a straight shot. So I think that that's going to definitely increase the value to this, to that area. So I think, to your point, Andy, it's a growing region. 100%, I fully have confidence that that area is going to continue to grow in value, and in the future, I wouldn't be surprised if Alabang becomes the next major CBD, which will essentially have the Calabarzon area, one of the closest resources to that area. We didn't present it today just because we had other trends that I think were more relevant to Q1, but 100% agree that that's an area worth looking at in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Advisor Andy, now we thank you so much, CEO Kenneth Stern, for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I ask now, Dr. Bernardo Villegas, our good friend from way back. You have mentioned, Dr. Villegas, that our OFWs is a very big factor when it comes to the housing industry, and they are the big buyers, especially that year 2019, we have 211.9 billion pesos on the remittances of our OFWs, and that is translated to at least $33.5 billion put in our economy. Now, because a lot of our OFWs are really wanting to invest, and that many of them are now stranded in the different countries that they are in, but still they are doing their best to put and give remittances to the Philippines because it's 157.9 billion in cash was given and remitted to the Philippines. And then the money that was brought home was 46.7 billion pesos. And those that are in kind is 7.3 billion pesos. So can you see, Dr. Villegas, that in the nearest future, this 2022, 23 and onwards, this will still be the trend of our OFW remittances and buying of properties? Hello. Uh, hello.
Thank you very much, Dr. Villegas. That was really very informative and very enlightening. You see, I'm really a big fan, and I think for the past 15 years, I always look forward to your economic briefings, and I attend your economic briefings whenever and whoever's hosting it. What's really exciting was it's I won't say that you're no longer the prophet of boom, but this is actually more realistic. I would call it more realistic now. And what's very exciting is what is to come after next year, especially starting in 2023. And another thing that really struck me and gave me goosebumps were the growth forecasts for the Calabarzon area, and then the Pampanga Triangle, and then the Iloilo, and then Davao, which means to people, real estate is not just Metro Manila. There are opportunities all over the country. So, having said that, we would like to ask you some questions that were sent in by some of our listeners. Are you ready to take some questions, Dr. Villegas?
Yes. Thank you for your kind words.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
I'm
you.
very privileged to do this. Now, sir,
Okay.
after posting continuous growth prior to COVID-19 for some 20 years or so, it was reported that the economic growth declined, of course, in 2020. At current government efforts, do you feel we can reverse this trend?
Oh, definitely. First of all, as I said, the government will be the main engine of growth for 2021. We'll have 4% because of government. The government is doing its share. There's no question about that. There's also one, let's say, detail that we should keep in mind. Whoever is going to be the next president, as long as we have people that are like the ones manning our central bank, our Department of Finance, our economic planning agency, and so forth, and we do have them. We have an abundance of very competent professionals. Our growth can continue. So I'm saying this because people are already so concerned about the presidential balls in 2022. There's a lot of rumors about who will run. I said, okay, that's important for political reasons. But for economic reasons, let's make sure that whoever will be the next president will do what Duterte has done, to depend a lot on the professionals. So we definitely already have institutions in government that can guarantee continued growth in the long run.
Nice. That's really very comforting to hear now. Now, are the current economic stimulus measures sufficient to revive the economy, or what are your views on this?
Well, there is a debate. Definitely, the Bayanihan 3, people are saying that we don't need as much anymore. I am in favor of those who would like to maximize the additional stimulus, precisely because I don't see the private sector becoming bullish when they see consumption not yet recovering. You know, businessmen become optimistic when they see consumers really opening their pockets. But I don't see that happening precisely because I foresee more and more lockdowns in key cities of the Philippines this year. So I want the government to maximize their stimulus package, especially in those critical areas like education, health, and the so-called social amelioration program.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Um,
Just a follow-up question, Dr. Villegas. What are the direct benefits, if any, to the real estate and the property sector from these measures?
Well, definitely the only area that would involve the marginalized would be socialized housing. That's where I want the private sector to do its share of social responsibility and teaming up with the housing agencies of the government to address that problem of informal settlers and providing them with decent housing. So I think that should be for your organization, NREA, your CSR. How to get your members to replicate programs like what happened in Quezon City, the so-called Bisticville, and in Cavite, the so-called Stripeville, where the local governments provided public property for a private real estate company, and together they built units for the informal settlers who do not have to be driven all the way up to, you know, Rizal and so on and so forth. That was a very wrong approach of resettling informal settlers. We have to relocate them right in the middle of where the work is. And I'm glad that you have these models I'm talking about. I'm sure you real estate people know Bisticville and also what the Ayalas have done before. Right beside some of their high value real estate developer, they have socialized housing for some of their employees. I think we had to have more and more of those projects addressed to the marginalized people in housing.
And also maybe bring business in those, either they bring them closer or bring the business or industries or jobs closer to those areas.
Exactly.
Okay. Sir, now, what do you see are some of the major economic factors that might positively affect the property sector in 2021 and beyond?
Well, definitely the most important factor is the drop in income of a lot of households. So those who were not even poor are now part of the poor because they have lost their jobs. No? So I can think of the cab drivers, you know, taxi drivers, jeepney drivers. These people are not poor before the pandemic. Now you see them in the street begging. Really, my heart aches when I see these people. So, so if you have some people in middle class right now not having enough incomes, that then definitely will cut away part of the demand for your low cost and social housing. But as I said, there are enough people among the overseas workers and workers in the BPO IT to compensate. And I'm very, for example, glad to see that the BPO IT is already recovering. There are a lot of new enterprises that are coming because they see the Philippines still with a tremendous advantage. They're contracting out business services to us, especially the so-called knowledge processing industries. The one sector there that is going to be threatened by artificial intelligence and by robotization is the voice-oriented call centers. But I think the industry association is very aware that they have to upskill these workers so they can go into animation, medical transcription, the more creative industries. And that is where we have still a tremendous advantage. So I'm very bullish in the BPO IT, and especially once the world recovers, companies in these developed countries who suffered from the pandemic will introduce a lot more cost-cutting measures. That is why they will outsource more and more of their business services to India and the Philippines. And we will see a boom in the BPO IT sector. That's why I'm not afraid about the office segment of the.
Oh, that's okay. Now that you mentioned about when the world recovers, but even in the second half of last year, it has been observed or even reported in the news that in the U.S., despite the pandemic, housing posted growth, and reportedly primarily due to the regime of low interest rates. Did something similar happen during that period, or will this happen in the Philippines?
Oh, definitely. Interest rate has a lot to do with real estate. And I'm glad to see the central bank keeping interest rates low. In fact, there was a temptation for them to increase interest rates because of the high inflation. So that is the bad news, that inflation will be over 4% this year. That's beyond their maximum. But fortunately, the central bank did not fall into the temptation of increasing interest rates because they saw realistically the high prices have nothing to do with too much money circulating, but with the supply of pork and vegetables. It's not demand push. It's a problem of supply. And so they will keep the interest rates low, which is good for real estate.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, you have mentioned, and actually in a very exciting fashion, in a very exciting manner earlier, about the growth. First time I've heard about the airport, the airport in Batangas, about the growth and then encouraging the people to invest, especially in landed properties in the Calabar zone area. And you highlighted Batangas in that as leading that one. Aside from that, what do you see are the buying preferences naman of the home buyers in the Philippines?
Well, I'm not an expert in real estate. Some of you, I'm sure, can answer this better. But I'm seeing that you have more and more young couples really looking into the future. And as I said, I see young couples now seeing that the next wave of expansion will be from Ayala Alabang, which already is beyond their capacity to buy, the young couples. But that's why you see developments there, New Valley and similar things. So that's going to be the first real movement of the young generation when they acquire property. And as I said, an alternative would be going towards the north, especially now with the beautiful link of NX and Lex. It's so easy now to go to central Luzon. So that is a buying preference. And I see more and more couples from this millennial and centennial generation really resigned to the idea that at least in the beginning of their married life, they will be staying in condominium units. So that unlike our generation, the very first preference was to have a house and lot and so on and so forth. That can come later for them in the development of their family. But I think more and more of them are staying in condominium units. And another thing that is changing is the young couples no longer have household help. They're doing all the housework. And so that means a lot of mechanization in their house. They do the cleaning, they do the cooking, and so on and so forth. There's a change of lifestyle.
Yes. The change of lifestyle.
I see that a lot because I'm a university professor. I meet a lot of our alumni, and that's one thing that strikes me. A lot of them are resigned to the fact that the generation will not have access to domestic help as their parents have.
Okay. No, thank you. I think our chairman Benny Cabrieto would like to ask a question.
Please.
Chairman Benny?
Okay, Chairman Benny is driving, and
Okay lang. I'm here na.
Okay, Sir Benny, you have the floor.
Good morning, Dr. Villegas. I've known Dr. Villegas for more than 30 years. having been a student at the former CRC.
That's right.
Dr. Villegas, I have one question. Is the big population of the Philippines a big economic advantage over the long term?
Oh, definitely. 100% yes. We are right now being considered a tremendous help to all these countries that have committed demographic suicide. So you can be sure once things become normal, there'll be a tremendous pressure for our people to send more health workers, more nurses, more teachers, more IT professionals to all these countries that are suffering from aging. In fact, even as we talk right now, I know of different groups bringing in German language instructor, Japanese language instructor, teaching our nurses, our IT and teachers their respective languages because they're planning to import them when things normalize. Without any question. And not to mention, right now our growth is not based on export. We will never become a major export-oriented economy. We lost our chance in the last, but we are going to have a lot of very strong industries based on our domestic market. Even a steel industry, but selling to the local market. If you take a look at the stock market, who are the blue chips? All of them are selling to Filipinos. They're not exporting. San Miguel, Rubina, Century Can, and so on and so forth. These are benefiting from our young, growing, and higher income populations. So, in fact, if there are here who are below 30, please be patriotic. And if you're married, have at least 3 children. Because there's a guarantee you will not fall into demographic suicide. Because 2.1 children per fertile woman is the cut-off rate. If you go below that, we will disappear from the planet. Like Singapore is disappearing from the planet.
It's a duty to have babies, to have more babies.
Patriotic duty, term development of the Philippines. And 3 is not too much to ask. Even with the rental rates, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, another very timely question. No? There was a bill recently that, or it's already a law that had hurdled both the House and the Senate, which proposes to include the reporting under the anti-money laundering law of real estate transactions in excess of 7.5 million. What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Villegas?
I think it's reasonable because I heard during the boom of the gambling, online gambling industry, real stories, not false stories, of Chinese coming with bundles of 3 million, 5 million, counting them, and actually buying real estate in cash. And that is immediate proof of money laundering. So I think we have to address that.
Okay, yes. Now, I think this will be the last question. Do you feel that the opening up of the construction business to foreigners be beneficial to housing or the economy?
Oh, obviously. I don't see any reason why we cannot allow foreign groups, and especially they can bring in new technology, as long as definitely they contribute to the upskilling of our local workers. And that is a requirement we can make, that they should not, like the Chinese, bring their Chinese workers with them to the Philippines. That would be definitely unwanted. But they can bring capital, which we need a lot. They can bring technology. Yes, I am in favor of foreigners being able to put up construction firms in the Philippines. And our construction firms are good enough and technically competent enough that they can compete. You know, there are sectors, you know, when people talk about Filipino first, I say there are sectors in which we have proved we can beat the foreigners. For example, the pharmaceutical. United Lab has 25% of the market, beating all the foreign multinationals in pharmaceuticals. SM, you know, all the big retailers are trying to come here, and they can come here because they can easily invest the required dollars, but they don't come because they're afraid of SM. So there are many areas in which Filipinos have beaten foreigners. So let's not be afraid of foreign competition.
Yes, actually, until now, McDonald's has been trying to beat Jollibee.
Jollibee is number one. Correct. Exactly.
Okay, with that, thank you very much, Dr. Villegas. It was really very enlightening. And too bad the time is very short, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions that everybody would like to ask. And now we thank you for that. Would you have any closing messages to our viewers?
Yes, well, my message is make sure that we are not unduly negatively affected by this crisis. That's why I focus a lot on the long term. On the long term, we have reasons to be optimistic because of all those strong fundamentals I cited. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in your next webinar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Villegas. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Mr. Andy and Miss Marisa. Now we proceed to the awarding of the certificates.
Okay.
Um,
Architect Ron, are you reading this or? The National Real Estate Association of the Philippines is giving the Certificate of Association, this Certificate of Appreciation to Attorney Angelito F. Aguila in sincere appreciation of your invaluable service to the association, particularly as a special guest and speaker during the NREA Business Forum Online, Philippine Real Estate Outlook 2021 on February 26 via Zoom and NREA Philippines Facebook Live. Board Chairman Benigno T. Cabrieto Jr., yours truly, Maritime Chair Lady, Board of Advisors Marisa Del Mar, National President Imelda C. Magtoto, and Secretary General Ronnie B. Biando. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Angel.
Thank you, Attorney
Thank you,
Aguila.
Attorney.
Andy, yeah, can you read this?
Okay, thank you very much. This certificate of appreciation is proudly presented to Mr. Kenneth Stern in sincere appreciation of your invaluable service to the association, particularly as a special guest and speaker during the NREA Business Forum Online Pro 2021, Philippine Real Estate Outlook 2021. Today, February 26, via Zoom and NREA Philippine Facebook Live. Thank you very much, CEO Kenneth Stern.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you
Pleasure.
so much. Thank you, CEO Kenneth. The certificate of appreciation. Yes, please, Architect Grace, please.
The National Real Estate Association, Inc., the one-stop trade organization, proudly presents this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Bernardo M. Villegas in sincere appreciation of your invaluable service to the association, particularly as our special guest and speaker during the NREA Business Forum Online, PRO 2021 Philippine Real Estate Outlook 2021 on February 26, 2021 via Zoom and NREA Philippines Facebook Live. Signed by our board chairman, Mr. Benigno T. Cabrieto Jr., our Chair Emerita and Chair Lady Board of Advisors, Ms. Marisa Del Mar, our National President, Ms. Imelda Magtoto, and our SecGen, or Secretary General, Architect Ronnie Biando.
Thank you, Architect Grace, Miss Marisa, and Mr. Andy. And before the closing, I would also like to acknowledge the presence here of the member of the Board of Advisors, Architect June Palafox. Thank
Yes,
you for
Sabra.
gracing
Thank
the
you.
event. So, and for our closing, let's hear it from the board chairman, Mr. Benny Cabrieto.
Thank you, Architect Ronnie. Yes, on our 30th anniversary, this is the first business forum that we're going to hold for this year. And there will be more interesting forums fora that we're going to business forum that we're going to conduct. And first, I'd like to thank the sponsors, the participants and the sponsors, led by Shanti Jewelry, EGI, Golden Bria, and Forest Lake. And I'd like to thank the speakers, Attorney Angelito Aguila, for presenting the incentives and the better things that they're doing to improve the lives of the brokers, the developers, and we see them more as an enabler rather than a regulator, and of course, over the long term, as a partner of progress for the real estate industry. And I'd like to thank CEO Kenneth Stearns for his generosity in sharing the data about the different demographics, or I would say about the consumer data. You know, I screenshot all of your presentation because it's very helpful. And I'd like to encourage the real estate brokers and real estate practitioners to shift to the digital age, because if you are not right now in the digital platform, you're going to lose a lot of opportunity. And lastly, I'd like to thank Dr. Villegas for his forecast, though he's not very forecasting a very good 2021 economic, but the economy has definitely recovered, but not as fast as we would want it to be. But for the long term, 2022 and beyond, he's forecasting an 8 to 10% economic boom or growth for the economy. So in closing, I'd like to say quotation: tough times never last, but tough people do. Thank you, and have a pleasant day to everyone.
Thank you. Picture taking.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. And that concludes. Just before, don't leave yet. We'll have our virtual pictorial. Okay, so please turn your cameras on just so we can have a photo all together. Okay, so that concludes our business forum online today. And thank you to our guest speakers, moderators, the officers, the secretariat who has put all this together, and you viewers for staying with us. All the members of NREA, thank you. And thank you as well to our generous sponsors. This being Architect Ronnie, your Secretary General, to all of you all over the globe. And kahit nasa Mars man po kayo, stay safe and may God bless us all. Maraming salamat po. And as Chair Emerita Marisa would always say, we love you all.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Architect Rondiando, to our great speakers. Thank you so much for your precious time. And of course, mabuhay NREA on our 30th anniversary. Mabuhay to our board of advisors, our chapter presidents. Mabuhay po kayong lahat. I love you all and we love you all. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Picture taking.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so
Picture
much.
taking na.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Stay
Thank you.
safe.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank
God
you.
bless all.
God
Happy
bless.
God bless
lunchtime.
everyone. God bless. Thank you.